So today we're going to learn about the beginnings of European colonization. Daily objective number 1, we're going to explain why Europeans sailed west and discovered the New World. Daily objective number 2, describe the limitations of the Treaty of Tordesillas. And number 3, list the goods that were part of the Columbian Exchange and where they came from. So, we talked a lot about the Crusades. One of the biggest effects of the Crusades is that Crusaders brought back to Europe goods from Asia. So remember, the Silk Road ends right here in Anatolia. The Crusades took place all across here and then across the Middle East. And this is also where the Silk Road ends. So this is where silk, pepper, all kinds of Asian trade goods, that's where they're ending up. Now, Europeans had never experienced these trade goods. But in the Crusades, when they went to the Middle East and they experienced them for the first time, and then they went back to Europe, they wanted to take these trade goods with them. So the Crusades ultimately spur a desire. They create a demand for Eastern trade goods. They also, the Crusades, also bring back technology to Europe, like advanced ship technologies, as well as gunpowder, which is really huge and something we've talked about before. So Europeans want the Asian trade goods. So what's going to end up happening is they trade for the trade goods. However, remember the Ottomans, the guy who used gunpowder weapons and cannons especially for the first time? They're going to block the Silk Road. So Europeans aren't going to be able to get these goods anymore. So what do? They send ships west. So North and South America. There's a lot of debate over who discovered the Americas. A lot of people say that the indigenous people, so the people who got to Americas first, were of Asian origin, and then they came down to North America over the Bering Land Bridge, and then they settled as they saw fit. So that's one potential group of people that discovered the New World. A guy by the name of Leif Erikson, he was a Viking. He actually reached North America around 1000 CE or AD. That's about 500 years before Columbus. So a lot of people say that Leif Erikson actually discovered the Americas. Now, Columbus had heard of these stories of Leif Erikson going to a new world. Columbus thought that Erikson had went to Asia. He thought that Leif Erikson had not discovered the Americas, but had actually found a different way to get to Asia. Because Columbus is trying to get rich, because he's trying to make Spain rich, because Spain is ultimately the ones that pay for Columbus's journey, he's going to take a ship, he's going to sail west, and in order to create trade contacts with people in Asia, skip the Silk Road, skip the Ottomans, make a fortune. So at the behest of the Spanish, Columbus does sail west, and a lot of people argue that it was actually Columbus that discovers the New World in 1492. Now, he landed in modern-day Dominican Republic, which is an island in the Caribbean just south of Florida. This is Christopher Columbus over here. He was actually Italian. He was not Spanish, but he worked for the Spanish. Now, Christopher Columbus summarily captures, enslaves, and kills natives as he encounters them. The number one reason they use to justify the capturing, enslaving, and killing is because these natives are not Christian. So they see anything that is not Christian, anybody that is not Christian, is less than human. On his second, third, and fourth voyage, Christopher Columbus actually commanded an army and sets up a number of Spanish colonies in the Caribbean. Second big explorer is a guy by the name of Bartholomew Diaz. Much like Christopher Columbus, Bartholomew Diaz is trying to find a route to Asia to get trade goods. Now, Bartholomew Diaz is Portuguese. He's not working for the Spanish. He's working for Portugal. In 1488, after spending decades trying to get around Africa and make it to Asia, Bartholomew Diaz actually does this. He finally makes it around the Cape of Good Hope, which is the most southern point of Africa. Shortly thereafter, Portugal begins building colonies in both Eastern Africa and Asia. So unlike Christopher Columbus, who was trying to discover Asia or trying to find a new way to Asia and didn't make it, the Portuguese and Bartholomew Diaz actually do. So we talked about this guy, Alexander VI, before. Remember, he is the father of Cesare Borgia. He's also a very, very corrupt pope, as most popes back then were. Now, Pope Alexander VI is very important because he is the guy who creates what is called the Treaty of Tordesillas. So Spain is exploring and colonizing. Portugal, as we've just mentioned, are also exploring and colonizing. Now, it's just a matter of time before they start fighting each other over new lands, new trade goods, and new sources of wealth. So Pope Alexander VI comes up with this idea. He basically draws a line on the globe, and he says everything west of this line, Spain gets. Everything east of this line, Portugal gets. And this is the reason why Portugal actually ends up colonizing Brazil, which is in South America, but not the rest of South America. Whereas Spain colonizes and explores the rest of the Americas, and do not actually ever colonize and explore Asia. It's because of the Treaty of Tordesillas. So the Treaty of Tordesillas, once again, it splits the world in half. It gives the New World, except for Brazil, to Spain, and gives all of Asia to Portugal. Major limitation of the Treaty of Tordesillas is that it only applies to Portugal and Spain. Alexander VI doesn't care about the rest of the countries in Europe because of the Protestant Reformation. They're not Catholic anymore. So why would he try and give land to non-Catholics? He doesn't care about them. He only cares about Catholic kingdoms, Portugal and Spain being two major ones. Both countries, Portugal and Spain, promised Pope Alexander VI that they will convert the natives to Christianity, which they do in large part. They do try to convert natives to Christianity, but not before, as I said before, summarily capturing, enslaving, and killing them. So here's some early colonies. We can see Portuguese Brazil down here. Treaty Tordesillas kind of puts the line like right here. So the Portuguese cheated a little bit and went a little bit more west than they should have. All of these yellow territories are Spanish colonies. So you want to know why people in Mexico speak Spanish? It's because Spain colonized them. This is the Caribbean. You can see it's yellow, so it's all Spanish. North America is a little bit different. The pink is British. It's Great Britain. If you want to think from a geography standpoint, Great Britain's just like right here, whereas Spain's all the way down here. So it was easier for Spain to kind of get here to South America and kind of move up, whereas Great Britain kind of hit Canada and then kind of sort of went down until they ran into the Spanish. The green is France. France did quite a bit of colonizing, but unlike the other European powers, France is really just after things like furs. They're really just trying to get money, whereas the Spanish and English are specifically trying to set up functioning colonies. Columbian Exchange. So one of the major impacts of Europe, the Old World, discovering and exploring the Americas, the New World, is the Columbian Exchange. So all of these things down here come from the Old World, so Europe, Africa, and Asia, and make it to the New World. So citrus fruits like oranges, lemons, grapes, bananas, sugarcane, honeybees, grains, cattle, sheep, pigs, horses, turnips, olives, onions, coffee, peaches, and pears. All of these diseases, smallpox, influenza, typhus, measles, malaria, I think that's a diphtheria, and whooping cough. All of these things are native to the Old World, Europe, Africa, and Asia. They do not exist in the New World, North and South America. So all of these things, as a result of European colonization and exploration, make it to the New World. On the other hand, squash, sweet potatoes, peppers, pumpkins, turkeys, tobacco, pineapples, peanuts, cocoa, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, corn, vanilla. All of these things go from the New World, so North and South America, to the Old World. Can you imagine Italian food without tomato sauce? Well, prior to the 1500s, didn't have tomato sauce. Can you imagine going to a restaurant and them not having potatoes or corn? Well, Europe didn't have it before the 1500s. All of that is New World crops. Number one thing you need to remember, major livestock. The Old World has a lot of it, cows, sheep, horses, pigs. New World doesn't have that. So they're getting that for the first time. The other big thing is the diseases. Lots of really, really terrible diseases go from the Old World to the New World. Not really a whole lot going back. Take a few minutes, answer your 3 daily objectives.